for Bach.
Thank you, thank you. You've got to sometimes start a bit slow,
Yeah.
you know, to get into the hot stuff.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get some hot stuff later. And tell us first, where does the singing come from?
The singing comes from home. I'm South African, and having been born there, it's known as the nation of song. So often people are always singing before they learn their own languages, you know. So it came really from a point of culture and celebration of who we are as a nation, as a people. So, yeah.
Take us to your home, or the home where you grew up. It was a township near Johannesburg, SelaoCoe, if I pronounce it.
Yes, SelaoCoe, yes.
How important was music at your home?
Music was a vessel to really understand all facets of life. It's a reflector of our society. So even if we needed to think about some of the contradictions or problems we have in our community, music often solved those things. The way we would gather was a very important thing. So it really was to show that our society should gather as an example the way music, you know, works.
And did you also play the cello at home with your family?
Yes. I mean, this is not a very African instrument.
No, it's not.
I would say that, but we certainly found a place for it in my home. I think being a storyteller is quite important, to be able to use this instrument as a vessel to speak your message, no matter where it comes from. So we were at home improvising, throat singing, playing rhythmic music, all on the cello and the voice.
Where did you pick up this vessel? Why did you choose the cello?
I was very lucky. I have a brother who's a great bassoon player, and he was one of those people that I used to follow everywhere. You know, as a kid, I was really inspired by him, and he really pulled me into music. And he was really clued up about expression, to be able to be at the bottom of the music, but also at the top of the music, and what instrument would find that. So he took me to a music school in Soweto, and I tried everything, the flute, the tuba, and I landed on this instrument that has this ability to speak low and to speak really high.
And were the people in the rest of the township interested in listening to you playing the cello?
At first, no. at first, because when you learn something, you're at the beginning.
Yeah,
you fail
sure.
often, which is a really wonderful thing. And then when you start to sound really good, people start to ask, what is this that you're doing? You know, and often I used to take this instrument into like cultural ceremonies, you know, where people would be looking for healing and there'd be drums playing, and I would try to find a place for it. And after a while, I was like, you know, just part of the furniture.
One of the,
You studied in Johannesburg, in Manchester, classical cello.
Yes.
And then in search of a musical identity, you discovered all new possibilities on your instruments, didn't you?
Yeah, it's something that I've heard from a lot of friends. It's something like an ancestral memory. You know, when you are looking for your identity, there's something about you from the time before your parents and the parents before that.
It's in your DNA.
In your DNA, and I had to go searching for it. And in this way that the singing came, and in this way I became inspired by African violins, you know. So there's a violin from Tanzania called the zeze, which is kind of like a really high violin with a very short bow, like this short, and you play like really high and very virtuosically. There's one from Mali called the gorje as well, which is one string. And so to imitate these things was like a child learning a language from the adults. I didn't learn it from a book. I just learned it by listening and translated it to this instrument.
Can you show it on the cello?
Yeah. Do you have a piece of paper?
With this?
Yeah, this will do. So sometimes we try to create a kind of buzz on the instrument, which is like a bit of a rhythmic feature. And this is something that I often do when I want to play with percussionists. Yeah. And it's my secret weapon. So I show you a little bit. So you put in a little bit in here, like that, in between the strings. And then when you play it,
it's like a sort of distortion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funky.
Go.
There is also some sort of chewing gum on the table.
Yeah. I would call it patafix, not chewing gum. And I put it on the strings. This is to create an otherworldly sound that does not sound like the cello. You know, so it's also all in celebration of creating a sound that is very drum-like. And it sounds a bit like outer space.
Oh, you get funny overtones.
Overtones, yes.
Yeah. Sounds like a drum. Yeah.
This is the way, and actually everything is always the imitation of the voice. Rhythm came from the voice, rhythm came from language, the way we speak. In South Africa we say, things like this. That's how, somehow a rhythm. And we can even use your sentences in your own language that forms a type of rhythmic structure. So I believe everything comes from the voice and then goes beyond.
And now, with your cello, you combine African musical tradition with all sorts of Western classical music.
Yeah.
And it all seems to go together pretty easy. Why does it blend so well?
You know, I think the real reason is that I grew up with it. And I think when you grow up with something, it just becomes a part of you. And earlier we were talking about this idea of DNA. You know, when DNA forms itself, it's very organic to itself, but it comes from different places and it forms to create one really beautiful thing. So what happened was that as I was learning classical music at the age of 9 and learning the cello, this idea of listening to Bach was really getting ingrained in me, but also the mother of my voice, the voice of my mother, per se, it was also a part of me. And I also realized that through history, you know, when missionaries came to South Africa, they came with a kind of language, which is the hymnal language, you know, that kind of Dominus Christus, you know, that kind of world. And that world is actually also the world of Bach and Haydn. And when it mixed with our culture, it created something very, very beautiful. So sometimes we sing even with low throat singing voice, but with what we call 4-part harmony, which is came from this world. And sometimes I hear my uncles, my forefathers singing some of these bass lines that could be Haydn, that could be Mozart. So the connection is really beautiful. And I think I sometimes work on that wavelength.
It was already in your DNA.
It's there, it's always been there, yeah.
And I often found that African musicians have a somewhat different conception of rhythmicality. And it's very complex. And how do you teach this to the Western players that you want to play with?
This is really, for me, so interesting because it starts with children. Children are the most curious people and I love them for that. And they can do the most complicated thing without asking a question. So the first thing you need to do is to revert to this place of curiosity. And often, to teach rhythm, we use language. So if I say, come and see, come and see. Come and see has a rhythm. Come and see, come and see, come and see, come and see. And I can't say come and see, but it already naturally has a rhythm within the sentence. So that's how we teach rhythm, using the words in order to create the music.
You're here today with the Ragazzi Quartet, a great string quartet from the Netherlands. Do you feel at home with them?
Totally, yeah. These are my great friends. I mean, it feels like we've known each other for a very long time, you know. I think you might know that kind of musical connection when you kind of first meet somebody and the conversation is extremely improvisational. You don't know what's going to happen next. And I think this feeling is one that forms friendships for a very long time. So they've been learning my music and more than learning it, they've been absolutely incredible. So I'm very privileged to be working with them.
And did you just send them some sheet music or some recordings, or did you just sing for them?
There were many surprises along the way. so I would send them some music, but on the day I'd feel like, nah, let's do something else. You know, let's change. And actually the availability and malleability to be able to listen and to be in the moment was really important. I always say, you know, we are always prepared. You know, your spirit is always ready to take on something new. And I think that's what they really embody.
What are you going to take on today for us?
Oh, today we're going to take you deep down to South Africa, a piece called Ka Bohaleng, which means on the sharp side.
Who inspired you?
Mothers. Yeah, I wrote this piece for my mother, but also for all of those that are mothers. It's a real celebration of the miracle of a mother, you know, how they bring us up, the courage they have, how they understand pain. And in our language, there's a saying, in the language of Sesotho. The saying says, Musadi utshwara thipa ka bohaleng, a woman holds the knife on the sharp side. Did I say more?
No, we can't wait. Please join the quartet. En dan zou ik in de tussentijd nog even tot Rosa Arnold richten, violist van het kwartet. Jullie zijn de afgelopen weken op tour met Abel. Dat moet wel een sensatie zijn om met hem op het podium te staan.
Ja, zijn energie is gewoon waanzinnig. En je denkt, ja, wat kan hij eigenlijk niet? Hij kan fantastisch cello spelen, prachtige stem, die ritmiek, maar ook, zoals net de Bach, zo subtiel en verfijnd. Dus het was echt ontzettend inspirerend. We hebben heel veel geleerd, ook over de Zuid-Afrikaanse traditie, over Zuid-Afrikaanse filosofie. Nou ja, het was echt een verrijking. Ja.
We zijn heel benieuwd hoe dat gaat klinken. If everyone's ready, dan gaan we luisteren naar Abel SelaoCoe, het ragazzi kwartet en percussionist Remco Menting met K. Bohaling.